Tonight, no deal on voting.
It's the biggest power grab in the history of the country.
But a compromise in the works on infrastructure.
Plus, the Iranian presidential election.
They didn't even put up the facade of democracy.
The man known as the Hangman of Tehran becomes the new president of the Iranian regime. And
my name is...
a new advocacy group wants to, quote, save the family.
And the premature baby boy given 0% odds of survival turns 1. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
A consequential week in the nation's capital. Good evening. I'm John Jessup. Welcome to Faith Nation.
And I'm Jenna Browder. John, great to have you back. Well, fresh talks on infrastructure begin this week in Washington, along with a battle over voting rights that could hit a wall as soon as tomorrow.
That's right. All eyes are on the Senate, where Democrats would need to win over Republican support to advance their election law reform bill. CBN senior national affairs correspondent Heather Sells joins us now with the latest. Heather, where do things stand right now?
Yeah, John, Democrats are doing their best to ramp up support for their voting rights bill. They need 10 GOP votes, but right now Republicans are giving them a firewall of opposition.
It takes the election system in this country and federalizes it, so it's a federal takeover of our election system.
Republican senators are not mincing words. Despite a slimmed-down voting rights proposal from Senator Joe Manchin, it would turn Election Day into a national holiday, mandate 15 days of early voting, require states to send absentee ballots to eligible voters, and ban partisan gerrymandering. Dems say the idea is to make it easy to vote and hard to cheat. They note that the Constitution provides for federal oversight of elections. Republicans say it goes too far.
In my view, SR 1 is the biggest power grab in the history of the country. It mandates ballot harvesting, no voter ID. It does away with the states being able to redistrict when you have population shifts.
Unless GOP senators get on board, the bill could derail. The White House vowing to press on.
Our effort, the president's effort to continue that fight doesn't stop tomorrow at all. This will be a fight of his presidency.
At the same time, the Biden administration is playing the long game on infrastructure, settling into a new week of wrangling on a deal for roads, bridges, and broadband. The president meeting for a third time Monday with lead GOP negotiator Senator Shelley Moore Capito. Moderates like Manchin are hopeful.
The president has gone from $2.25 trillion down to $1 trillion. The Republicans have come up quite a bit from where they started.
But how to fund the bill? Republicans want to use monies already approved by Congress, but the White House says there's not enough.
The president has proposed a range of ways to pay for this package, including ways that would not violate the red lines the Republicans have put forward. One of them is ensuring the highest, wealthiest individuals in this country pay what they're supposed to pay as it relates to taxes, additional tax enforcement.
Democrats are also warning they might bypass the GOP.
Folks want a bipartisan deal. If we don't get there, then we'll consider other options.
The White House today said the president is encouraged by progress on infrastructure and depicted the former senator as relishing the legislative details. On voting rights, watch for Senate leader Chuck Schumer to try and win over all 50 of his senators so he can blame Republicans for any defeat of the voting rights bill.
All right, CBN's Heather Sells reporting. Thanks so much, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, joining us now is CBN chief political analyst David Brody, fresh off of his interview with former President Donald Trump. David, you had your phone interview, and I know that you guys covered a lot of territory with former President Trump. I think the biggest question that may be out there, though, is about 2024. Did he hint that he's ready for another run?
Well, I think he hinted pretty strongly at it, actually. And I think some of the news coming out of the interview is that he says, and this is a quote, I think you'll be very happy, is what he says, with the decision that I make. And so, you know, leave it to Trump to kind of put some ambivalence in his words. But that is what he said. So we'll wait and see. It was a very reserved interview. It was very about a 15-minute phone interview, which you can see on the 700 Club tomorrow and also on Faith Nation as well as in the coming day or two. But it just got over with here in just the last hour or so. But I will tell you this, that as it relates to 2024, he seems like he wants to run. There's no doubt about it. But what I thought was also interesting is that he didn't necessarily say that it would be because if all of his candidates that he supports win. He says that wouldn't be the reason. He just thinks that he's just not happy with the direction of the country.
Oh, yeah, David, the Western Conservative Summit wrapped up over the weekend. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis beat Donald Trump in its 2024 GOP straw poll. You know, one thing we do know about Donald Trump is that he does not like to share the spotlight or be upstaged. What do you make of this poll, and does it mean Trump is losing some of his hold on the Republican Party?
Well, it doesn't surprise me, the poll. I mean, Ron DeSantis is the golden child right now in Republican politics. I actually asked Donald Trump about Ron DeSantis. I was curious to see if he would maybe, as they say, diss him a little, but he didn't. As a matter of fact, he said he thinks what Ron DeSantis is doing in Florida is amazing, it's great. And then he kind of dissed him a little bit by saying, and I helped him with his poll numbers, and he'll remember that, you know, something along those lines. So leave it to Donald Trump to kind of get a little jab in there. But he said many kind words for Ron DeSantis. But look, I think it does kind of make you wonder what's going to happen in the future. I mean, if Trump gets into the race in 2024, is there enough room in the race for DeSantis and Trump? My sense of it is no, but we'll wait and see.
David, you know, we just had the Supreme Court rulings that came out last week. Obamacare, of course, survived. I wonder, did he say anything about those cases in regards to the 3 Supreme Court justices that he got appointed?
He did. I asked him point blank about his reaction. He said he was disappointed. And then he went on to say he was very disappointed. Those are his words, very disappointed in that. And that he said he worked very hard to get them confirmed. Both, he's talking about Amy Coney Barrett and Brett Kavanaugh. And then I followed up by asking him any second or misgivings or any second thoughts about picking them. And he said, no, really, I can't even go there at this point. It's a little too early. So that's kind of where he's at on both ACB and Brett Kavanaugh.
Yeah. David, not too much longer left here, about 30 seconds, but a big week on Capitol Hill and a test for Biden, the administration's legislative priorities. The Senate first tackling the voting rights bill, which looks like it's dead on arrival. If it's not going anywhere, why are Democrats intent on taking it up?
Well, I think they want to make this a campaign issue, 2022, and they're going to get people, you know, a lot of times it's not just so much whether or not legislation passes or not, it's whether or not they actually take the vote and get people, senators, congressmen, on record as to where they stand. And then at that point, you make hay, politically at least, in 2022 against certain congressmen and politicians.
All right. David Brody, we will leave it there, but we look forward to your interview with the former president tomorrow morning on the 700 Club.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, David. Well, turning overseas to the Iranian presidential election, the executioner is now the head of the executive branch. The man known as the Hangman of Tehran is the new president of Iran.
Jenna, the expectation is he'll accelerate the country's nuclear program. For the reaction from the region and the ramifications for the United States, CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell reports on the warning some are sounding based on his rise to power.
As Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei boasted how the Iranian nation fulfilled its democratic responsibilities, many others called the election a sham.
They didn't even put up the facade of democracy. It was a one-man race. Anyone who could have threatened his victory was screened by the Guardian Council about a month ago, so they wouldn't get in the way.
As a prosecutor and member of the infamous death committees in the 1980s, the incoming president, Ibrahim Raisi, earned the nickname the Hangman of Tehran.
The executioner is now in the head of the executive branch. He sentenced thousands of people to death. There are the death sentences of the mass murders of 1988 that were buried in common graves without even marking.
In 2019, the U.S. government placed sanctions on Raisi, and Amnesty International has called for him to be charged with crimes against humanity. Official results indicate less than 50% of Iranians voted, an historic low turnout. Some claim it was even less, as dozens of videos online show no one at many polls.
In an election where they know a murderer will win, why hold it?
These Iranian mothers joined an online appeal to boycott the election.
Dear brave Iranians, don't vote in these elections. We have been voting for 40 years. This is the result. They killed our children.
In Jerusalem, new Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett says the election results will hopefully open the eyes of the world to see Iran for what it truly is.
Raisi's selection is, I would say, the last chance for the world powers to wake up before returning to the nuclear agreement and to understand who they're doing business with. These guys are murderers, mass murderers. A regime of brutal hangmen must never be allowed to have weapons of mass destruction that will enable it to not to kill thousands but millions.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Thanks, Chris. And joining us now is Alireza Nader, Senior Fellow with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies and an expert on Iran. Alireza, thank you for being with us. What more can you tell us about the integrity of the elections in Iran? Was this a real contest that represented the will of the majority of the Iranians?
It's a selection rather than an election. The selection of Iran's leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who is relatively old now. He's 82 and reported to be sick with cancer, and he is determining his succession. And he has picked one of the most brutal men in Iran, responsible for executing as many as 8,000 political prisoners in 1988, including women and children and the handicapped. This is a man who brags about it rather than is apologetic. Even today, he said he has worked his entire life to preserve human rights. So the Biden administration will be negotiating with a presidency led by him. And if reports are correct, the Biden administration will soon release tens of billions of dollars to this regime by re-entering the highly flawed nuclear agreement, also known as JCPOA. And I believe yesterday, the president's national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, stated that it doesn't matter who the president is, saying implicitly it doesn't matter if he's a mass murderer. The nuclear agreement is of utmost importance. So I think Washington right now has no problem dealing with them.
Yeah. So there were reports that many Iranians were planning to stay home and sit out the election. What was the turnout like, and did that have an effect on the results?
I have seen reports from Iran and firsthand testimonies that show many empty polling stations. I have heard from people inside Iran that the population boycotted the selection en masse. The Iranian people, the vast majority of the Iranian people anyhow, despise the Islamic Republic, and they have rebelled against it twice in the last 3 years. And Iranians don't want this regime. They don't want Raisi, the mass murderer, to be their president. They want a free country, and they want free lives. I believe the turnout could have been much lower than 50%. In the last parliamentary elections, there were credible reports that the turnout was 10 to 25%. And it's very possible that it could be very low. I would even argue in the single digits. You have to consider also a lot of people are forced to vote. So if you're a government employee, member of the Revolutionary Guards or the paramilitary forces and the military, if you're a teacher, all those people, these are millions of people who are forced to vote. And many actually left their votes blank, their ballots blank. There was one report that a lot of people wrote Batman as their choice for the new president. So you can see that the population of Iran is way done with these guys, including Raisi.
Well, all right, Alireza Nader with Foundation for Defense of Democracies, thank you so much. It's great to get your insights.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Coming up, game changer. The Supreme Court sides with student athletes, allowing them compensation for college sports.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Tonight, student athletes are getting their due. The Supreme Court ruling today that they may be compensated. The unanimous decision siding against the NCAA's strict limits on colleges offering educational perks. The court says those restrictions violate antitrust law by limiting schools from competing for talented student athletes by offering better benefits. Any compensation offered by schools must be tied to education.
Well, some relief tonight for people battered by Claudette, now downgraded to a tropical storm. After leaving behind a trail of destruction in the south over the weekend and spawning multiple tornadoes, the storm is now headed out to sea. Meanwhile, at least 13 people are dead due to the effects of the storm. 10 were killed in a multi-vehicle crash Saturday along a wet interstate, including 8 children in a van for a youth home for abused or neglected children. The National Transportation Safety Board sent 10 investigators to look into the tragic crash.
The return to normalcy in the United States continues even with the new Delta variant of COVID-19 now detected in at least 45 states. For the first time in 15 months, concert goers in New York City flocked to Madison Square Garden for a sold-out Foo Fighters concert Sunday night. They did have to show proof of vaccination, though. And in L.A., the first full-capacity soccer game in over a year, with more than 23,000 fans in the stands. All this as the CDC estimates the Delta variant of the virus now accounts for 10% of the new cases in the U.S.
When we come back, Fighting for Family Values, the new initiative that's taking on critical race theory, girl sports, and other cultural flashpoints.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to cbnnewschannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
And welcome back. Well, if you're a parent of children at home, don't be surprised if you find some extra cash in your account. The White House is announcing a child tax credit of up to $1,800 per child. It's part of the American Rescue Plan signed by President Biden. Starting July 15th, around 36 million families will start receiving monthly checks from the IRS, which would last through December. Single taxpayers making less than $75,000 qualify for the enhanced child tax credit. Married couples with an income below $150,000 a year will also qualify.
1 million members in 5 years. That is the goal of a new campaign described as fighting to save American families by challenging the influence of big government, big tech, and big business. The American Principles Project launched what it calls the Big Family, which rolled out this weekend in line with Father's Day.
They're teaching our kids that America is evil, and instead of protecting our kids online, they're protecting the porn companies. Screen time's up, Bob. And now, they're trying to destroy our daughter's sports by allowing boys to compete against them.
And joining us now is Terry Schilling, president of the American Principles Project. Terry, welcome. It's great to have you with us this evening. So what has been the response so far to this new initiative?
It's been incredible, and thanks so much for having me. We have raised over $100,000 in less than a week. We've gotten over 2,000 people have signed up to join us, and I haven't even started paid to advertise yet. So the response has been so strong, and I think that the response has been strong because the attacks on our families are so strong. It's like a pendulum. It's swinging back just as hard the other way. But we're not stopping at 2,000. We're not stopping until we get to 1 million, and I need everybody on board. That's for sure.
Terry, you're starting off with a bang. You say the goal is to launch an NRA for families and that politicians need to be afraid of families the same way they fear corporate interests and lobbyists. Does the idea of weaponizing family values at all give you pause?
Well, it doesn't, because they've been weaponizing anti-family values against our families and trying to force that on us. Look, this is the political system that our founders designed, right? They designed a system in which politicians were supposed to care about one thing and one thing only, and that's their reelection. And that's the system that we're playing by. So we want politicians to be more fearful about hurting families. That's really what the goal is, to be fearful of hurting families and upsetting us, rather than their corporate-sponsored special interest groups that they've been bowing to over the past several decades.
Yeah, well, speaking of this corporate interest, how does advocating on behalf of families put you up against some of these corporations?
Well, across the board, these corporations have been attacking our families. You look at this critical race theory stuff. You look at the transgender stuff that they're pushing on kids. Nickelodeon, for example, they're having drag queens on Blue's Clues. They're pushing the transgender, changing your gender stuff. They keep attacking us, and there's no one standing up for us. And the people that we need standing up for us won't do it unless we are organized and engaged in politics. And so we're trying to start this. There are a lot of other ways that corporations are hurting us as well. It's not just, you look at the online situation. You can't go to a gambling website and cast a $10 bet on the Cubs to win the World Series next year. But any little kid with a smartphone or a tablet can go to hardcore sites with very explicit content. And we need to change the system and update it and hold these people accountable.
Terry, we know that you were at Governor DeSantis' bill signing protecting women's sports. Is your aim by launching this group to get more bills like that signed into law, if you can, in about 30 seconds?
Absolutely. Yes, we're very focused on fighting against this gender insanity that everyone's pushing on our kids in schools. But we're also focused on fighting this radical racialization of our children in schools with critical race theory in 1619. But undergirding all of this, we also want to protect kids from online pornography. But we also need to get school choice. Parents are the ones that are in charge of their kids' education, and they need to be able to send their kids to whatever school they want to.
Terry Schilling, president of the American Principles Project, thank you.
Thank you.
Still ahead, from preemie to the Guinness Book of World Records, see this incredible story of this miracle baby who defied the odds and claimed a spot in history.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Finally tonight, when Richard Scott William Hutchinson was born nearly 4 months early, he was given a 0% chance of survival.
Not only did he beat those odds, he made history and earned a top spot in the Guinness Book of World Records, all before celebrating his first birthday. Richard turned 1 earlier this month on June 5th. Guinness World Records officially recognized him as the most premature baby ever to survive. Richard's come a long way since being discharged from the NICU 6 months ago, just like his parents believed that he would. We all here would like to wish Richard a happy birthday and also a happy Father's Day to a parent who believed in their child from the very beginning. And as you often hear, Jenna, there's nothing like a mother and a father's love for their children.
Yeah, absolutely. Seen right there. Yeah, happy birthday to Richard, and he's a miracle baby.
And hope for a happy and healthy long life.
All right, have a great evening.
See you tomorrow.